If a student is not serious, then generally he tends to ignore even very important, crucial points. If a person is very serious, very diligent, very awake to what he is doing, alert to, awake to what he is doing, what am I doing? Then this particular point that's made here is highly useful. What is the point? The word, the meaning of the word Sat, the truth. That Sat, the truth. Sat means to be, existence. Let me translate it as existence. Existence is not a quality of, the Vaiseshikas always say, so the space is, the air is, the fire is, the water is, the body is, the mind is, and the trees are, the river is, the mountains are, etc., etc. Now we always use the word is, are as connected to the objects. The pot is, mat is, space is. So this applies to everything. The table is, the chair is. In this manner, Aram se chunna, without being restless. So this is connected to every object. Then the Vaiseshikas think existence also, existence, to be, is means existence. Is means to be. And to be means existence. These Vaiseshikas, the logicians, always think that existence is a common quality, property of objects. This is a very huge mistake. And when you correct it, huge clarity. Because not only Vaiseshikas think so, this is how a layman thinks. Existence of an object is a part of the object, is a property of the object. Like we think, like look at a tree. Its height is its adjective. Its height is one of its adjectives. Its color is another of its adjective. That is also its adjective. The height is its adjective, the width is its adjective, the girth is its adjective, the color is its adjective, the taste is its adjective. They're all properties of a tree. These, just as a tree has so many properties, its form, its look, its color, its taste, touch, smell, etc., they're all its properties. Its existence also is its property. That is how the Vaiseshikas think. Existence is not a property of an object. Existence is the source of an object, not a property. This particular thing, understanding that existence is not a property of the creation, but existence is the soul. It's like a wave is a given form. It has a certain height, certain width, certain dimension, and it has got certain length of time, length of life. A wave has a given length of life, a given height. Now it's called, the look, the form. That's called a wave. That form is called a wave. But its identity as water is not a property of that form. It's not a property. It is the substance. That is the truth behind the form. The truth behind the form, I'm just trying to explain. The truth behind the form does not mean behind. The truth that runs through the form. and yet not a property of the form. This is what the Vedanta is trying to convey in these lines. Vaiseshikas think existence is a common quality of the objects. Say if existence, now just think, if existence is the common quality of all the objects, then before the creation of the objects, there should be no Sat. There should be no existence. If Sat is the quality of all objects, then before the creation of the objects, there should be no Sat. That means Sat also becomes created. So the object, therefore Sat, the truth, is not a quality of the objects, but it is the source. See, this is what we have to distinguish. To be a property and to be the source. This is where we mess up. Somehow or other, we get really little. One doesn't give enough attention to see the difference. Say property, source, property, source, property, source, property, source. Then I say, दोनों एक ही है. ना, दोनों एक नहीं है. दोनों एक नहीं. Like how the ornament looks. How the ornament looks. How elegant it looks. How attractively it looks. That is all property. How big it is, how long it is, how wide it is. And all these are all what? Properties of that form, an ornament. And only to bring about that form, you give money to the one who makes it. But when we say gold, gold is not a property of the ornament. Gold is the source of the ornament. Try to understand from this. Gold is not a property of the ornament. It's not a given attribute of the ornament. The attributes of an ornament are different. The attributes of an ornament are how big it is or how small it is, how it looks, is it thick or thin or length and breadth and this is all what? Is it really elegant or less elegant or more elegant and how? This is all what is called attributes of a form. Attributes, properties of a form. But gold out of which that form is made, that gold is not another attribute of another property of that form. What is that gold? Source. God is like that gold. Truth is not another property of the objects. Truth is the source. Whereas Vaiseshika, the logician, thinks is the attribute of, another property of the object. So this is what we have seen, this particular Purva Paksha. Nanu Vaiseshika Pakshepi. Let us read the lines. Nanu, lekin Vaiseshika Pakshepi, even in Vaiseshika school, Sat Samanadhikaranyam. Sat Samanadhikaranyam means that all the objects are equated with, they are all associated with existence. Samanadhikaranyam means equation. Pot means pot is, that is called Samanadhikaranyam. Pot is. Mat is. And table is. Chair is. So, every object is synonymous with existence. Sarvasya upapadyate. For every object, sarvasya means the whole world. Every object looks synonymous with existence. Because we always look at every object as is. Table is, chair is, the tree is, the river is, the sun is, the moon is, the stars are, the sky is. Therefore, this is inseparably connected to all the objects. And that is called existence. That is called Sat. So that means the existence is Sat. What you call Sat is a common property of all the objects. If it is a common property of all the objects, then it is as mundane as the objects. Simple. If Sat is a common property of all the objects, then it is as mundane as the objects. If the objects are a worldly stuff, Sat also is a worldly stuff because it is a common property of all the objects. And then if it is so, then why do you require Vedanta Pramanam? We already know it. We can understand it through logic. And now see, Purvapakshi says, Dravya Gunadishu. Dravya, the noun, Guna, the adjectives. In every noun, the Sat is seen, every noun we look upon as is, like the tree is, and the greenness in it is, the height in it is, and the certain taste in it is, the touch, a given touch in it is, a given smell in it is, a given form in it is, and tree in its entirety is. Thus all the objects are looked upon as is, everything is viewed as is, and every attribute in it also is viewed as is. This is what is called the common Satta Samanyam. Satta Samanyam means the great pervasive common quality of all the objects. This is called Sat. Dravya Gunadishu Satchabda Buddhi. Satchabda Buddhi means we have the Buddhi, we see it. We not only see the pot, we see it to be. ये बहुत बड़ी बात है. We see the object to be. That means pot is. That is how we view it. Pot is, mat is, table is, chair is. Satchabda Buddhi Anuvritte hai. This is common. The sense of existence is present in everything. We see every object to be. Sat dravyam san gunaha sat karma ityadi darshanat. Sat dravyam, the noun is. San gunaha, the qualities are, the quality is. Sat karma, action is. Objects are, the qualities are, actions are. Or like the body is, and it has got so many qualities. Those qualities are, and the body does some movements, and they are called actions, and actions are. Body is, qualities are, actions are. Therefore, that is, are, is in singular, are in plural, that is called Satta Samanyam. That is called the truth. That we already know. Why do you want to study Vedanta? वेदांत क्यों सुनना चाहते हैं? वेदांत क्यों सुनना चाहते हैं? दिमाग गर्म क्यों करना चाहते हैं? Because what is Sat? The common thing, that which is there in all the objects. The common property of all the objects. The common property of all the objects is called Sat. Ityadi Darshana. Up to this is the Purvapakshi. I hope I have conveyed. And if you feel it's not clear, you have to register it. Vaiseshika is a school based upon logic, is not based upon Shabda Pramanam. It's based on sense perception and sense perception based logic. They go by sense organs, that's all. Like science. Like physics is totally sense data based, chemistry is sense data based, biology is sense data based, Every education in this creation is sense data based, pratyaksha based. Understand? All technology is pratyaksha based. If a man is able to reach the moon, that is also a science, a certain law which is within the operative, within the creation. Pratyaksha based. Pratyaksha pramanam is great. Therefore, in order to understand the details inside the creation, the pramanam is pratyaksha anumanam. And generally man tries to live only by means of his senses and the sense data based reasoning. He uses inferences. If I did that way, if I did this before, if this brought me this much of money last year, the same thing if I do today will bring me. Thoda bahut mil jayega. I always say, I keep learning from my experiences. Learning from experience is nothing but inferences. I made a mistake. I did that. I got into trouble. Therefore, if I do it again, I'll again get into trouble. Is what? Inference. The one who is able to learn from himself, he is considered to be intelligent man. He is called an intelligent man, the one who learns from himself. In fact, there is more to learn from yourself than from others. There is a lot to learn from yourself. I did this, I got into trouble, therefore, learning from one's own experiences. Learning from one's own experiences is nothing but learning from oneself. In fact, it is always what you learn from yourself is really learned. What you learn from others' experience is not convincing. Because others' experience, you never know exactly what they did and what is there in their mind. Pata nahi. Kuch pata nahi ji. That is why pariksha is always of one's experiences. Pariksha is not of others' experience. Even if there is something to learn from others also, it is all right. But then there is hardly anything to learn from others. I am telling you, there is everything to learn from yourself. Because people are all doing more or less the same thing. We all make mistakes. Anyway, and therefore we have to learn from our own mistakes. That's a different topic. I am not going into it. Because there is a particular phrase, learn from others, and I don't want to contradict it. Otherwise you will all say, what is this? Amiji is contradicting that learning from others. What is there to learn from others? You better learn from yourself. Learn from yourself, because you know exactly what you have done and what are the results. You are intimate. What you have done is known to you, nobody else. The results of it known to you, nobody else. You see, this is what I did and this is what I got. This is how it is. Thus, one has to analyze one's own actions. One has to analyze one's own experiences, then learn from it. That is why the Shruti also says, Pariksha lokan karmajitan nirvedam. Pariksha lokan karmajitan nirvedam ayat brahmana nasti agradaha agradena tudvijnanartam sagurumeva vigachet. Samit pani rodriyam brahmanishtam. The Shruti says, hey, you better learn from your own experiences. Learn from your own experiences. Then having learned, then don't say, without learning, don't say I have learned. If you have really learned from your experiences, then you should get vairagya. That is called learning. You see, this is very interesting. Then you say, without learning, if you say, I have learned, it doesn't work. Really, if you have really learned, you should get vairagya. Vairagya means what? You should become you should live a simple life, hurting none, hurting no one, harming no one, non-violent, non-greedy, non-jealous, non-hateful, and only dedicated to understanding the truth that is within, the peace that is within. In that person is that vairagyam, making you, turning your attention back to yourself, is the natural result of learning from one's experiences. तो बहुत बड़ी बात है ये. Learning from, that is why tad vijnanartham so guru mein. And therefore, anyway, now coming back to the point, all education in this world is based on sense perception and anumana. These two pramanas, pratyaksha and anumana. Therefore, according to this school, he says you don't have to study Vedanta to know the truth. You can know the truth through your senses and through your logic. Use your senses, use your eyes and ears, literally, and also use the sense data based reasoning. Depend upon reasoning. Whereas Vedic culture says, Pratyaksha is good for living, you have to use your eyes and ears. To live, to survive, you need to use your eyes and ears. And to survive also, you need to use your reasoning. But to understand the truth, you have to listen to the Shastram. Why? Because reasoning we apply to the objects, senses we apply to the objects, the eyes apply to the objects, the ears apply to the sounds, the eyes apply to the forms, colors, and the sense organs apply to the sense objects. And the reasoning also that we do is only about the same. We do logic, we use logic only about the objects. Therefore, the senses apply to the objects, the logic also applies to the objects. Whereas we are the subject, we are the light. We are aware, through the eyes I am aware of the form, I am aware of the sound, taste, touch, smell. I am aware of a process called logic. That subject is not something that is there in front of the eyes and logic. And for that I have to hear, I have to turn my attention back to the subject. So to know about the subject, I have to listen. Therefore, truth cannot be known through merely pratyaksha and anumana. This is what Vedanta is telling. This is Vedanta on the one hand. And this is the Vaiseshika on the other hand. Please, I want you to see the difference. One is a Vaiseshika, the other is a Vedanta. What does Vaiseshika say? You don't need Vedanta. What does Vedanta say? You need Vedanta. Vedanta says you need Vedanta. Whereas Vaiseshika says you don't need Vedanta. Then what do you require? Just use your logic. Good enough. Whereas Vedanta says your logic also applies to the objects. I am talking about you, the subject. See the answer now. Satyame. Up to this Purvapaksha. I am trying to convey to the best of my ability, but you have to follow. You know. In fact, the student has to make up for whatever the teacher misses. That is called being an adhikari. ये बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है. Just Uktam, Anuktam, Duruktam. There are three things. Uktam, Anuktam, Duruktam. Uktam means what is said. Anuktam means what is not said. Duruktam means slip of tongue. Sometimes a slip of tongue, wrongly said by a slip of tongue, not actually Duruktam. Slip of tongue is different from making a mistake. This is a slip of tongue, don't interpret it as, oh, Swamiji ne aisa kaha. A slip of tongue. Slip of tongue is different from a mistaken thinking. A student must see what is said, also see what is not said, and then make it up. Try to remember, this is not said, but that is there. It is not said by the Swami, but it is there. This is said by the teacher, it is there. This is not said, but should have been said, doesn't matter, but it is there. This is said a little wrongly, that is a slip of the teacher's tongue. कोई बात नहीं. Thus, I should be able to see Uktam, Anuktam, Duruktam. That's called Adhikaritva. बहुत बड़ी बात है ये. What is said, the Manuttundu. I am trying to say something. That is Vaiseshikas, for Vaiseshikas, truth is a common property. For Vedanta, truth is not a common property but common source. All that you have to reflect on is these two words, to be a property, to be a common property of the objects, and to be a common source. ये बहुत बड़ी बात है. If one can live his one's whole life seeing the difference between the two is good enough. Satyam evam syat. Now, like I'll give you. Gold is not a common quality, common property of all the ornaments. Gold is not a common property of all the ornaments. Did you hear it? Gold is not a common property of all the ornaments. But gold is a common source. Common source. Once you use the word property, it becomes an adjective. Adjective is there in the noun. Anything, every property of a form goes with the form. If gold also were a property of the chain, when the chain is broken, gold should be broken, gold should go. When you melt the form, the form disappears, but the gold doesn't disappear. That means what? The gold survives, and what survives the form is not a form. What survives the form is not a form. The form is dissolved. The form dissolves. Put the ornament in the fire, it dissolves. And what survives the dissolution of the form is not a form. And what survives the form is also not a property of the form, means an aspect of the form. It's not an aspect of the form. Gold is not the form. Gold is not chain, please. Gold is not, chain is gold, but gold is not chain. ये सोचना भी बहुत जरूरी है. Chain is gold, but gold is not chain. If gold is chain, then you already have gold, then why do you take it to a goldsmith to convert it into a chain? Therefore, thus gold is the common source. Clay is the common source. Water is the common source. Similarly, truth is the common source of everything. Sat is the common source of entire creation. This is what is battled here. This is what is battled. Bhagavan here, he just puts everything in a very brief manner. But when the real argumentation takes place in places like Brahma Sutra, it runs. It runs into pages. It runs into pages. Okay, now answer is given. Satyam evam syad idanim. Satyam evam. Satyam, it is true. Evam syad. It looks like this. Idanim, now. So that the Sat is a common property of the objects. Sat is the common it looks like a common property of the objects. Sat looks a common property of the objects. That is how it looks, but on analysis it's not so. Why? Pragutpattestu, before the creation, naiva idam karyam, naiva never, idam karyam, this universe, sadeva asiditi, it was satiti, abhyupagamyate vaiseshikaihi. The vaiseshikaihi is not accepted. It is not accepted by the vaiseshikas that this universe before its creation was Sat. Vedanta says, before the creation, this universe was Sat. Before the creation, this universe, Vedanta says this universe before the creation remained the Sat. It was the truth. It remained the Sat. It remained the Sat. Vaiseshikas don't say before the creation this universe was Sat. Vaiseshikas say this universe was asat. Asat means emptiness. Why? According to them, Sat is a property of the world. And therefore, when the world was not, the Sat also was not. Bahut badi baat hai if you are listening. Truth, according to the Vaiseshikas, is a common property. It is a part of matter. Truth is a part of matter. Let me change the language. Because there is no rapport. Very difficult to strike a rapport. According to the Vaiseshikas, truth is a part of matter. Therefore, before the matter was created, truth also was not there. Therefore, before the creation, this world, before the creation of this world, what was there? There was nothing, asat. They say the state before the creation is emptiness. According to the Vaiseshikas, the state before creation is emptiness. Emptiness. Whereas we say, before the universe was born, there was only the Sat. Only the source existed minus the creation. Now also there is the source with the creation. And before the creation, there was the source but without the creation. It's like saying, before the wave, when the wave is born, there is water with the wave. There is water looking a wave. Let me say there is water with the wave. And when the wave subsides, there is still water without being a wave. Not a wave. Wave is a creation. Okay, wave is a creation. So when the wave, the creation is there, what is there? There is water with the creation. And when the wave subsides, there is water without creation. But you cannot say, before the wave was born, there was nothing. Can you say that? So before the wave was created, there was nothing. You can't say. Say there was the soul minus the wave. You can only minus the wave, but you can never minus water. You see, you cannot minus water. You can minus the wave, all right. Say there was a time when the wave was not, but you can't say there was a time when water was not, within the context of the sea. There is a time when the wave is not. There is again a time when the wave is. There is again a time when the wave is not. But there is not a time when water is not. Therefore, difficult to visualize emptiness. Emptiness is a word for which there is no object called emptiness. Emptiness is a word, but a thing called emptiness you can never come across. You cannot come across a thing called emptiness. Why? If there is a thing called emptiness, supposing there is a thing called emptiness, and then if you look at it, then it is no longer emptiness, because the one who is looking at the emptiness is not emptiness, it is just a thought. Emptiness is a thought. If emptiness is a thought, thought is not emptiness. Understand? Thought is not emptiness. A thought of emptiness is not emptiness. I feel empty when you say, it is a feeling, not emptiness. That means what? Emptiness as a reality is not there. Therefore, there is no need to make complaint after complaint in life. I feel empty, I feel empty, I feel empty. All the time people say, I feel empty, I feel incomplete, I feel empty. Why you are all the time being, everybody, why do you have to be an enemy to yourself? All the time running down yourself. When people run down you, people run down you, then you can stop there. Hey, please don't run me down. But if you run down yourself, then who is going to help you? Why do you want to run down? Even if you haven't made enough money, why still what? Do you have to judge yourself by your capacity to make money? Is that really, how does the self-esteem come? What is this so-called self-esteem? Self-esteem should not be based upon what you make or unmake. Understand? What you gain and what you lose. What you gain and what you lose should not govern, determine, decide your self-esteem. Self-esteem should be unconditional. The self is the truth. What I achieve or what I lose doesn't matter. My very existence is divine. The very existence of oneself is divine. Therefore, even if I haven't made anything, so what? Self-esteem, if it depends upon something, then you can never sustain self-esteem, because there is always a reason to lose it. That is why many people, every day they keep revising their self-esteem. Every day you are revising. Kal अच्छा था, आज थोड़ा down है, फिर again अच्छा है, you make little money, and then थोड़ा ठीक है, then you get a facelift, and again, what is all this? Vedanta says, shut up. What is this? Self is the truth. What is this self-esteem? Your very being, that you are. You are divine unconditionally. You are free unconditionally. You are the most valuable unconditionally, not conditionally. Therefore, that is why Krishna says, Uddhared atmanatmanam, atmanam avasadhyat. Never run down yourself. He doesn't mean to say, always cook up self-esteem. He doesn't say that. Uddhared atmanatmanam means what? Save yourself from running down yourself. Save yourself. Stop yourself from running down yourself. Because you don't deserve to run down yourself. Nobody deserves to be run down, because everybody is divine. The most successful is also essentially divine. The self is divine. The poor is divine. Krishna is divine. Sudama also is divine. Krishna is as divine as Sudama, and Sudama also as divine as Krishna. Out of prarabdham, one is poor, the other is. Out of prarabdham. Sometimes when we do business also, everybody doesn't make money. Some people get money like that. Some people just have to think of money and the money is there. Just think of it. आ गया. Some people keep working for it the whole life. जो था वो भी चले गया. You see, that is this prarabdham. And you have to recognize, yes, it is a prarabdham. That doesn't mean anything. Prarabdham does not mean anything. That is called having good, wise temperament. It is better to be born with a good temperament rather than born with a bad temperament. It is better to be born with a good temperament and less money than with a bad temperament with lots of money, I am telling you. It is better to be born with a good temperament. And what is the temperament? I say prarabdham doesn't mean anything. Prarabdham doesn't mean anything. Therefore, this so-called self-esteem, please don't play it up. Don't judge yourself on the basis of your labha, alabha, jaya, ajaya, sukha, dukkha. Don't allow the comforts that you have been able to achieve, the comfortable life or the uncomfortable life that you are leading, the successful life or the not so successful life that you are leading, may you not allow it to touch your self-respect. And you respect yourself on the basis of the fact that you are the truth, not on the basis of material success. If self-respect depends upon how much money you have or how much success you have made, then you can't sustain self-respect. And if it needs to be sustained, it can't be sustained. This is called really brahmastram. Anything that requires to be, anything that needs to be sustained, anything that needs to be sustained can't be sustained. वो तो चले जाएगा. That which need not be sustained, that which is our nature, need not be sustained. That is eternal. Like you see, I don't have to sustain fire's nature. Wherever there is fire, it is effortlessly hot. Therefore here, emptiness. So now coming back to the point, Vaiseshikas say, before the creation there was emptiness. And the word they give it is asat. Buddhists call it shunyam. Vaiseshika and Vainashika, there are two schools. You have to hear, because I am telling a lot of things. If you pick up, it is a great use. And don't take it for granted. वैसे तो स्वामी जी कल भी यही बताएंगे. कल कौन देखा है पता नहीं जी. कल कौन देखा है. Do you know your approach to Vedanta? You should never be postponing when it comes to the right things in life. You can always postpone when it comes to wrong things. If it is supposing you are tempted to do a wrong thing, you better postpone it. Maybe in between you become wiser. I am telling you, yes, I have to drink. Supposing somebody tempts you to drinking, tempts you to drink whiskey or something, then you say, all right, I will do it, but then I will do it tomorrow. Who knows, by God's grace, in the meantime, you become wiser and say no. Always postpone wrong things, but never postpone right things. Never postpone right things, because it's not right. Therefore, here also don't say, Kal Swami ji batayenge. One school is Vaiseshika, the other is Vainashika. Vainashika is Buddhist. Vaiseshika is logicians, our own school. Some of the Hindus renouncing Veda and taking to mere logic, they are called Vaiseshika. Vainashika are Buddhists who develop hatred for Veda. There is a difference between hatred for Vedic things. There is a difference between hatred for Veda, hatred for everything that is Vaidikam, and just having a disagreement with it. Simple disagreement is different. A simple disagreement with a few things, a simple disagreement with a few Vedic things is different from hatred for Vedic things. Buddhism had hatred. Why? Because that's why they broke off. Buddhism is breaking off from the Vedic, breaking off. Not only they broke off, then they tried to refute whatever Vedas. That's called. And do you know what their main school? Shunyam means what? The background to the creation is emptiness. There is no such a thing called God. There is no such a thing called self. There is no such a thing called truth. Emptiness is truth. There is truth, but that is nothing but emptiness. Emptiness. Shunyam. Nothingness. Now you can't interpret shunyam to mean awareness. They say it is not even awareness. Don't use any language. It is shunya, nothing. Thus, those who say that the background to the creation is shunyam, they are called Vainashika, Vinasha. Those who always accept Vinasha means emptiness. विनाश को मानने वाला सब विनाश हैं, meaning emptiness, destruction. The creation, this universe is an appearance in emptiness, and it becomes again emptiness. In this manner, those who think they are called Vainashika. And some of our own people The Vedic people, but then, they have certain, I don't believe in all these things, but then they have a school called logicians. They are called Vaiseshikaha. Just fix up. But both mean ultimately the same thing. Karyasya sattva abhyupagamat, karyasya asattva abhyupagamat. Up to that, I have seen. Bhashyakara says, Sa Satyam evam syad idanim pragutpattestu naivayadam karyam sadeva asiditi abhyupagamyate vaiseshikaihi. Pragutpattehe karyasya asattva abhyupagamat. Vaiseshikas say, before the creation, this creation was emptiness. Vedanta says, this creation, before the universe was created, there was something, and that was its source. This creation also was there, but in the form of its own source. It was there unmanifest in the source. It was there as the source. Nacha ekam evam sat advitiyam pragutpattehi icchanti. Nor do the Vaiseshikas accept, nacha, nor, ekam eva, ekameva sad advitiyam, ekameva sad advitiyam, ekameva, ekam evam or ekam eva sad advitiyam. Vaiseshikas don't say that before the universe was born, there was one Sat, there was one truth, the non-dual truth. They don't say there was nothing, they will say. Ekameva Sat Advitiyam Pragutpattehe Icchanti. They don't say there was only one Sat. Tasmat, therefore, सृष्टि के पहले एक ही सत्य था, ऐसा वो लोग नहीं मानते. वेदांत मानता है सृष्टि के पहले एक ही सत्य था. God alone was. Before the creation, God alone was. Vaiseshika says, before the creation, there was nothing. Tasmat, therefore, Vaiseshika parikalpitat sataha. Therefore, the definition as given by the Vaiseshikas, it's called Vaiseshika parikalpitat sataha. Anyat karanamidam saduchyate mridadi drishtantebhyaha. Vedanta defines the truth differently from the definition of the Vaiseshika. Therefore, the definition is important. According to Vaiseshikas, what is the definition of the truth? That which is the common property of all the objects. According to Vedanta, what is the definition? The common source. And in that definition lies a huge difference. That is why religions must become, they must sit down and define what the truth is. Must define. What do you mean by God? They must come down to that. What do you mean by God? When you say God, what is that God? Is God another individual seated in heaven? What is that God? People have different definitions of God. Each one has got his own God, and then they keep fighting. Why? Because I am using a word, and I don't mind using that term, even though technically some problem, some mobile is ringing. Technically, they are unscientific. One has to be scientific even in understanding God. The method of scientific means what? Don't just be illogical, try to be logical. That is called being scientific. What else? Scientific means what? Not that you have to depend upon sense data. That's okay. I am using the word scientific in a very general, in a broad sense. In a very broad sense. Scientific means what? Don't blindly follow. Do you know the word contrary to science? Can you tell? Do you know what is the word contrary to science? Superstition. Understand? Anything superstitiously following is different from scientific. Therefore, Understand, superstition is distinct from science. Therefore, don't unnecessarily think of God in a superstitious manner. Don't be superstitious about the form of God. Don't be superstitious. God is there somewhere sitting and then controlling all of it. This is being superstitious. This is a superstition. Yes, what else? Superstition doesn't apply to only what we do in day-to-day life. Even in our thinking, there are a lot of superstitions. Too many. In fact, the whole life is nothing but superstition. Even that I am born is a superstition. It's unscientific. That I will die is a superstition. It is a superstition because it's unverified thinking. It is an unverified thinking. Untested thinking, unverified thinking. Therefore, following one's own unverified thinking, is it not superstition? Following one's own unverified thinking is what? Superstition. It is not being scientific. Therefore, defining the truth is important. Vedanta is very particular. Sir, what is the definition of Sat? Is it a common property or is it a common adjective of all objects? Is it a physical thing or a non-physical source? If it is a common property, then it goes with the objects. If it is a common source, it survives the objects. Vaiseshikas define truth as the common quality, and Vainashikas define truth as common emptiness. If you want, if you like this is what Shunya means. What? The common emptiness, the universal emptiness. Because every object rises from emptiness. Therefore, emptiness is the common truth of all the objects. That very definition, I tell you, the moment you guide yourself on the basis of the definition, your direction is different. It's not an ordinary thing. That is why the religious definitions of the truth dictate terms to the human beings. Religious beliefs dictate terms to us. Our beliefs, we are dictated by our beliefs. Our blind superstitions. We are dictated by our blind beliefs, we are dictated by our superstitions, we are dictated by our beliefs based on hearsay. We are not free. We are all the time controlled by our own blind beliefs and superstitions. That is why Shastra says, shake off all these blind beliefs and superstitions and think correctly. Why? Because truth can never be emptiness, truth can never be nothingness. Because if there is some truth called nothingness, that can only be proved by someone who sees it. And if there is someone who sees it, that seer cannot be emptiness. That seer cannot be emptiness. You see? And therefore, these religious beliefs, religious superstitions have to be overcome through right definition of the truth. Therefore, coming to Vedanta is no ordinary event, is no ordinary ghatana in life. It is aghatita ghatana patiyasi hai. This is a strange event. It is an event really that rectifies everything in life. It is like changing a person from the wrong to the right direction. It's like pulling man out of his dream and putting him in the waking state, or pulling man out of a state of illusion and putting him face to face to the truth. This very definition rectifies everything. In fact, this very definition, when I give my serious attention to this definition, that Sat means the common source of everything, heals my wounds, I am telling you. It heals all our psychological wounds. Why? Because if this Sat, truth is the source, unnegatable source, and if that source am I, then why am I crying for what happened or for what did not happen? I just ignore all that happened or did not happen in one stroke. Why? It is like, you see, you wanted murmura. You wanted, somebody to give you murmura. You know murmura? This murmura. And sometimes you get some murmura, sometimes you don't get murmura. And then later on you are having really complaints. Oh, yesterday I got murmura, day before yesterday I did not get murmura, they were very unkind, they did not give, they were very... I have lot of really good and bad things to say about my past. When I got murmura, I failed to get murmura. And suddenly somebody comes and gives me gold. Lot of prosperity. Bhandara. Whole heaven comes on my platter. Will I have complaint about the previous murmura? How much murmura I got and how much murmura I did not get. In life, that very definition of the soul. If the truth is the source of every thought, and that source is me, the eternal. If I am the eternal, then I should not have any grudges about the past. I should not, because then I should become really, if I am that eternal source, what does it matter if I got something or did not get something? All my past successes, all my past failures fade out. Material successes and material failures of my past simply fade out. In the light of this definition, hey, the eternal source of everything is you. Then I should be happily trying to understand me. Therefore, the very definition of truth, I am saying, heals my psychological wounds. I am telling this is very important. A lot of psychological wounds, hurts. The very definition of the truth heals one's psyche. Koi baat nahi. Forgiving is possible, forgetting is possible in the prospect of my being that source. You see? Forgiving and forgetting is possible. It's natural. It's like, when you wake up from the dream, somebody, said something in dream. Your friend came into your dream and said something to you, and you didn't like it. When you wake up, then what do? You forgive and forget. Something like that. Forgive and forget. Forgive and forget. So it's a dream. Similarly, all one's successes and material successes and material failures in one's life were a dream in the light of this definition. That is why I am taking so much of time for this definition. You may be wondering why Swamiji is not moving ahead. Swamiji आगे जाता है क्यों नहीं? शुक्र है जी, मैं तो पीछे नहीं जा रहा हूं. कम से कम I am maintaining the status quo. I am just staying at one place. Otherwise, I would go back to the introduction. I am not going back to the introduction. This definition of the truth is what gives us either sanity or an insane definition of truth of my religion. If my religion gives me, I am telling you this, if my religion gives me an insane definition of the truth, then I become insane. Because that definition works on my mind. That definition works on my mind. If my religion gives me a sane definition of the truth, then that very sane definition works on me. I become sane. religion plays. Religious definition of the truth, or religion's definition of the truth plays a huge role in making a man sane or insane. That is why religions have a big role in keeping man sane or insane. Because somehow we tend to identify with the religion more than we identify with the nation. Somehow there is a tendency to identify with the religion. There is nothing wrong in identifying with one's religion. But if the definition of the truth as given by the religion, if it is not correct, it is going to create havoc. That's why the Vedantic definition of the truth, that truth is not one of the objects, nor is it a physical property of all the objects, but it is the source of all the objects. God is the common source of appearances. God is not another appearance. God is not one more appearance. God is the common source of all the appearances. That definition, and then he says that source, common source, is not far from your heart. It is right there in your heart. It is right there in your being. Therefore, it is very intimate. Truth is very intimate. Because a non-intimate truth is of no use. A non-intimate happiness is not useful. A non-intimate freedom is of no use. A non-intimate peace is of no use. Therefore, God, if there is God and who is not intimate, then it is of no use. A non-intimate truth is of no use. That is why the scriptures define the truth is the common source, and that is very intimate to you. It is so intimate, nothing is more intimate to you